And good afternoon to all. So for today's topic, we shall look into the subtopic of fundamental sustainability principles. So there are 4 fundamental sustainability principles. So we shall go look one by one. So first principle is known as normativity principle. So the concept of sustainability development is always socially constructed and normative ataupun kita kata subjective. Because it is ultimately what sustainability means depends on our views or our perception in regards the kind of world that we want to live in and want to leave as a legacy for our future generation, like our children, our grandchildren. So sustainable development is always implies in the societal and also normative choices which are ultimately based on the values that we maintain. So basically when we talk about norms, kita kata benda tu adalah lumrah kehidupan. So this is a very subjective principle, and there are few indicators that actually influence our views on sustainability development. Number one is because of systems integrity. Number two, views on justice, and last but not least, the views on quality of life. So basically, by having the 3 indicators, it's helping for the environmental policy maker to generate for the future strategies for sustainability, and also allowing to measure the progress in sustainability development in our country. So for example, kita boleh katakan contohnya macam the necessities of humans existence in providing food to eat. So macam last class saya ada cerita tentang pasal satu dokumentari di Netflix iaitu bertajuk Seaspiracy. So basically that is a documentary that touch on the environmental impact of overfishing, as well as that documentary actually examine the human impacts on the marine life. So back to our example tadi kan, the necessities of humans existence to provide food to eat. So from this normativity principle, so the human action can be judged according to the degree how much us human are able to contribute ataupun able to supply ataupun able to provide the food sources. So if there are several alternatives to produce food, and then this policy maker need to choose the one option that fit the best goal of sustainability. So again, contohnya macam dalam Seaspiracy kan, kalau kita tengok dalam dokumentari tersebut, ia menunjukkan bahawa aktiviti overfishing ni does give impacts toward the ecology system in our marine life. So values are abstract ideals which evoke the emotional reactions and are typically expressed in terms of good or bad, better or worse, desirability or avoidance. So maksudnya norms lah kan. Kadang-kadang okay, you kata macam aktiviti menangkap ikan tu memanglah pada asalnya itu adalah lumrah kehidupan manusia. Tapi adakah bila berlakunya aktiviti kegiatan overfishing tersebut, adakah are we calling it as a norms, or it is something yang abnormal? So they define or direct us to the goal, frame our attitudes and views, and also provide standards against which human behaviour can be judged. Dekat sini kita dah mempertikai dah tindakan manusia dalam kegiatan overfishing, for example. So these values are varies between cultures across the globe and over time. Therefore, we have global sustainability values that actually ada stated ataupun you can found in the Millennium Declaration and also in the Earth Charter. So, for Millennium Declaration, I will explain a bit. So, basically, Millennium Declaration ni is introduced by United Nations. So, basically, what this Millennium Declaration promotes is that they commits the world leader to combat these 6 things. Number 1, to combat poverty, kemiskinan. Number 2, to combat hunger, kelaparan. Number 3, to combat disease, penyakit. Number 4, to combat illiteracy, buta huruf. Number 5, to combat the environmental degradation. And last but not least, to combat discrimination against women. So, itu adalah prinsipal-prinsipal yang termaktub dalam Millennium Declaration. And for the Earth Charter, you may take a look in the Earth Charter website. There are 16 principles that actually similar to Millennium Declaration, kata apa, promoting the sustainable development in the future. So consequently, sustainable can never be determined with the resources to objectifiable teori. Maksudnya kita dah kata dah, normative principle ni is very subjective. Dia bergantung kepada you punya perspektif, how you view the sustainable developments. So it cannot be empirically proven. So while science is very crucial for sustainable development, that's why we have lab experts, we have the environmentalists, we have the chemistry people who run the test, so on and so forth. We have these people who works at the geology sectors. So this orang kata apa, this sustainable development, it cannot be resolved the basic question of what is sustainable and what is not. So the concept is characterized by what might be called as interpretive flexibility. Apa yang you interpret, apa yang you faham tentang sustainability, the goal adalah the norms, orang kata apa, the norms of the principle, and allows the various views and also interpretation to be existence within the concept of the interpretation limit. So again lah, contohnya macam kegiatan overfishing. You tahu overfishing tu merupakan kegiatan yang sangat luar daripada konteks lumrah kehidupan kita. Walau bagaimanapun, kita masih lagi orang kata apa, tiada teori yang boleh menentukan konsep sustainability tersebut. So itu adalah normativity principle. So in conclusion, normativity principle is establish the integration of ethical principle of action of the human with the given functional reality of society and also ecological system. So apa-apa pun berbalik-balik kepada kita punya ethics principle lah. So itu adalah normativity principle. Moving on, kita nak tengok fundamental sustainable principle yang kedua, iaitu equity principle. So basically in the context of sustainability, the term equity itself has to do with the fairness, keadilan, which all people have the similar rights and also opportunities and also basic needs to maintain an acceptable quality of life. So when I talk about all people, dia rujuk kepada intergenerational equity. So kalau you tengok dekat sini, central principle of sustainability development could be subdivided into ada 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So kita akan go through one by one lah. So dia ada 5 jenis equity dekat sini. Number 1, kita akan go through dulu intergenerational equity. So basically intergenerational equity refers to the long term aspect of sustainability. So as this concept not only aims to meet the present human needs and also aspiration, but also it includes the rights of the future generation to meet with their need. So again, so bila kita kata dengan intragenerational equality, so throughout all people, so all people ni referring kepada a community, a group of people that live in, sama ada live in a village, live in a town, live in a city, or a country, or entire world, need to have these same basic needs that must be taken into considerations. Maksudnya there is a equity among the present population. So selalu bila kita kata dengan perkataan equity, you akan oppose dengan equality. So ada beza between equality dan juga equity. So kat sini kata, because we depend on the natural resources to meet our needs and also aspirations. So this principle includes the requirement to keep what is within the environmental limit of the earth. So in this sense, we shall say that we have not inherited the earth from our parents, but we have borrowed it from our children. So itulah kita kata dengan intergenerational equity. Moving on, kita nak tengok intragenerational equity. So intragenerational equity is also concerned about fairness between the current and also future jugalah. So we are striking for a reasonable balance between satisfying our needs today and also setting aside enough to provide our needs for our own future. So it is similar to intergenerational equity, but in the regards of the present generation lah. So macam intergenerational tadi, dia adalah untuk generasi yang sekarang dan juga masa hadapan. So untuk intra ni adalah untuk generasi yang sekarang lah. So it refers to the realization of contemporary social equality, whereby the right of human being of the present generation for a decent quality of life. So inilah kita kata dengan equality. Number 3, moving on, kita nak tengok geographical equity or known as global responsibility. So basically, it refers to the need for cooperation worldwide and also from the local level to the global level in the spirit of shared but differentiated responsibility in tackling sustainable issues. Like we need to act globally and think globally. For example, like how this 193 member country of United Nations work together towards sustainable development goal. So this is we call as geographically equity. Next, number 4 is the procedural equity. It refers to the democratic and participatory governance system, which is involving concern about decision making process ataupun kita kata kat sini policy making process on environmental. So this is particularly essential because of the normativity principle tadi for sustainability. So basically as we all know, resources rich countries is characterized by the governance problem, including by having a weak judiciary and also a poor political institution. So basically negara-negara ini negara-negara besar, berkuasa besar yang biasanya yang akan basekan dia punya kilang, dia punya headquarters dekat negara-negara yang tidak berapa membangun tapi mempunyai sumber-sumber seperti tanah, air, energi. Jadinya mereka ini kadang-kadang dari segi kata apa, execution of the policy making is very poor. So this country need to face this risk that associated with an over specialization, especially on agriculture sector and also resource based export. So biasalah kan, yang apa tu, yang orang kata apa, yang negara-negara yang maju membangun, dia akan movekan dia punya industrialization dia kepada negara-negara third world country. Therefore this third world country will having this difficulty and also risk India country lah in terms of sustainable development. Mungkin tanah banyak dah kena kosong, dibangunkannya HQ untuk buat pejabat, and then in terms of apa tu, kalau sektor-sektor manufacturing ada dibangunkan kilang. So dekat situ dah orang kata apa, dah merosakkan orang kata apa tu, values ataupun kita kata merosakkan sumber-sumber yang ada dalam country, third world country tadi tu lah. So it will lead to the socio-environmental and also socio-economic conflicts due to the increase of the exploitation of land and also minerals. So again, we need to we need to actually taken this issue seriously lah, especially in the execution of the policy. Kadang-kadang sesebuah negara tu dia mempunyai policy tapi dia punya implementation process dia very poor. So again, so this is particularly essential because of the normativity principle tadi. Norms kan, adakah benda itu boleh diterima oleh orang-orang di sesebuah negara. And last but not least, equity in terms of interspecies, that stand for the environmental stewardship and refers to the survival of other species on equal basis to human survival. So for example, like documentary on the seaspiracy and also cowspiracy, macam mana this activity on the over specialization agriculture as well as this overfishing activities can give impacts on the environmental. So So it highlights the critical importance of preserve the ecosystem integrity and maintaining the biodiversity, not only utilitarian but also other species that has the right to survive. So itu kita kata dengan equity principle. Bila kita kata pasal equity ni, in the context of sustainability itself, equity is related to fairness. Fairness in maintain your basic need to having a good quality of life. Itulah kita kata dengan equity principle. Moving on, kita nak tengok prinsipal yang ketiga, iaitu integration principle. So, the third principle is integration principle. Is a concept of integration, integrasi lah. So, the need, orang kata apa, as a logical consequence of its modern genesis and in the need of the whole system perspective, the sustainability should harmoniously integrate various traditional and also develop the objective with the environmental one. So bila kita kata integrate ni, boleh kita katakan dengan berjalan dengan seiring lah. You walk the talk. You ada strategy, you ada targets, you ada policy, but it become useless if the targets, this policy is not being implemented as well as not being executed. So this implies that all sustainability principles should be applied together. So and mutually need to be mutually supportive benefits that should be always sought. So integration in contrast with the idea of balancing or trading off, suggesting sacrifices among the sustainability objective. So bila katakan dengan macam producing time to time policy and to make sure that the policy is coherent, maksudnya policy tu menyeluruh, kita perlu ada these integrations. Therefore, we can achieve our sustainable development goals in the future. So this is a pernicious because of the objectives that inherent, linkage, berkait rapat, related, and also interdependency, maksudnya saling memerlukan lah. And if there are failure to achieve one or more sustainability objective, it will undermine the success of other objective. Kerana kadang-kadang objektif ni dia saling berkait rapat. So sekiranya berlaku orang kata apa, kegagalan untuk mencapai satu objektif, maka objektif yang lain pun tidak mampu orang kata apa, tidak mampu dicapai. So for example macam negara di France, negara di Mongolia. So these two countries, France and Mongolia, what they did is actually they come out with a strategy which they form a ministry called Ministry of Sustainable. So this ministry is actually functioning to discuss, to make policy, to regulate laws on sustainable development. So this is a new thing for you, and then this is actually a bit orang kata apa, a bit an eye opener for you as the environmental policy maker in the future. So integrasi, nama pun integrasi. You perlu orang kata apa, cooperate. You perlu ada kerjasama, and paling penting you have to walk the talk. So itu kita katakan dengan integration principle. And last but not least, the last principle in sustainability is Dynamism Principle. So sustainable development is always a process of directed. So it can be sustainable ataupun kita kata dia sustainability oriented. Dia bergerak seiring lah dengan keadaan semasa. So it can be changed and not defined as end state. So the society, the environment, and also the interaction between the society and also environment are subjected to a continuous flow of change, iaitu dynamism lah. So as a result, sustainability development, it is not a fixed state of harmony. Instead, it is an ongoing evolutionary process. So in other words, sustainability is not a final destination but a destiny orientated long voyage. Macam you duduk dalam satu kapal besar, you masih berlayar-layar sampailah you jumpa destinasi yang you nak sampai. So hence it is sometimes that argue that sustainability can never be achieved and it is a perfect realization is elusive. Yelah, betul tak? Kadang-kadang kalau kita tengok SDG goals tu, yang 17 tu kan, it is impossible for us to achieve all the 17 goals. Kadang-kadang kalau kita achieve pun, kita takkan achieve to that extent. I mean like from 1 to 5 star, kita tak adalah achieve 5 star, takkan. Setiap achievement, setiap goals tu, kalau kita tengok dalam Malaysia punya konteks, setiap goals tu tak semua, orang kata apa, tak semua goal Malaysia dah capai SDG tu. Kalau yang ada capai pun, it's about still in the progress. Maksudnya macam dalam 60%, 66%, and itulah kita kata dengan Dynamism Principle. It is not a final destination, it a destiny oriented long voyage. So basically untuk dynamism ni, saya nak bagi contoh in terms of population lah kan. Kita cerita pasal population dynamism. So basically bila kita kata pasal population, kita merujuk kepada rakyat, penduduk dalam sesebuah negara. So sebagai contoh macam negara yang mempunyai population yang sangat ramai seperti China, Indonesia, and then negara Jepun yang mempunyai populasi yang dah sangat berumur. Kat Jepun pula kurang populasi orang-orang muda. So for population dynamics, it can be growth, it can be aging population, it can be declining population, as well as migration and also urbanization. So this will affect consumption, it will affect production, it will affect employment. Bila affect employment, dia akan affect pula you punya income distribution. When we talk about income distribution pula, dia berkait rapat dengan poverty. Bila berkait rapat dengan poverty, dia pula akanlah, orang kata apa, akan adalah social protection, ataupun kita kata macam social issues lah. So basically nowadays in Malaysia, social protection like macam pension is a very highly debated issues lah, since our youth population are very more likely larger than the previous generation. So these dynamics will challenge our efforts towards sustaining our universal access. For example like maksud saya, bila berlakunya orang kata apa, populasi dinamika ni kan, population dynamism ni, dia akan orang kata apa, dia akan memberi kita cabaran. Cabaran kita adalah untuk bagaimana kita nak maintain dan kita nak sustain kita punya universal access. Maksudnya keperluan kita dari sudut kesihatan, health, education, housing, our sanitation system, our water, our food, and also our energy. Itu kita katakan dengan challenges. Our challenges to sustain this universal access. And then basically it will pressure on our planet as well. So because of what? We need water, we need forest, we need land to to build a school, to build a academic institution, to build a hospital, to build a housing area, and then you nak kena buat pula sistem air, and then you nak kena tahu pula macam mana nak buat electrical system. So somehow it will contribute towards climate change, and also it cause us the sustainable development challenges lah. So itu kita kata dengan dynamism, one of the issues in the dynamism punya principle. So while this type of reasoning sounds very theoretically correct, it might be a pitfall and also an argument to escape from the societal commitment towards the objective. So instead, the sustainability can and also it should be achieved. It depends on us lah. It depends on society as well as on our governance. So it should be regarded as a continuous search for a delicate equilibrium in dynamic setting. So dynamism principle, nama pun sering dinamika, berubah-ubah mengikut keadaan semasa. So again, balik-balik kepada saya punya population dynamism tadi tu, walaupun kita terlalu dengar macam banyak sangat dia punya drawback kan, betul tak? However, this population dynamism do not only pose challenges, but also it provides the important opportunity for us towards the sustainable development. Kenapa pula miss? So for example, like macam there is a fall in the fertility levels and slower population growth. For example, it leads to an increase of concentration of the population in the working age range, which can enable a country to reap a demographic bonus and also jumpstart towards the economic development. So basically, apa yang saya cakap ni, dia merujuk kepada tadi itulah migration and also urbanization. So kalau you all ada dengar saya cakap tadi kan, population dynamics tu, it can be growth population, it can be aging population, it can be declining population, tapi kita pun boleh merujuk population dynamism ni in the context of migration and also urbanization. So migration and urbanization ni pula merupakan orang kata apa, two powerful driver to achieve the sustainable development. So however, whether the population dynamics are having challenges or having a big opportunity, well, it depends on how we enforce the policy. So again lah, it depends on the policy execution. So you need to walk the talk. So this dynamism brings about uncertainty, sebab kita tak boleh nak predict pun what will happen to us next 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, 30 years onwards, and the risk is due to the unpredictable evolutions. So therefore, the precaution is need to be taken. So precaution, it requires respecting the uncertainty. You need to avoid even poorly understood risk. Maksudnya janganlah ambil ataupun in the future nanti you jadi policy maker yang akan membuat polisi tentang environmental di Malaysia. You janganlah ambil mudah, pandang enteng dan juga pandang ringan. And then bila you punya colleague orang kata apa, propose kan, dia propose risiko-risiko apa yang akan jadi sekiranya kalau kita tidak orang kata apa, tidak membuat polisi sebegini, therefore it will lead to the risk of serious or irreversible damage. Maksudnya tak ada benda bila kita sebut tentang benda hidup kan, benda tu tak boleh nak reverse balik. What you have done is already done. So irreversible damage to the foundations for the sustainability itself, designing for surprise and managing for the adaptation. And again lah, you need to come up with alternative and make sure that alternative that has been provided must be able to adapt in our country lah, in our orang kata apa, in our current trends. So it will involve the willingness to act on incomplete but suggestive information where the social and also environmental system are at risk. So basically, untuk dynamism principle ni biasanya akan ada, sebab itulah kita ada orang kata apa, participation dengan NGO, bukan sahaja sektor awam, malahan kita ada private sector juga yang orang kata apa, yang menyokong ataupun mendukung sustainable development goals. Dan kita ada pressure group, kita ada NGO. Therefore kat situ dah nampak dah ada orang kata apa, society participation in promoting sustainable development goal. So that's all for today's class. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.